And I just want to get right into it. My name is Chinwe Blessing, and thank you for joining us. Do have it at the back of your mind that in the course of the show, we are going to be having a guest, and we're going to be discussing matters that concern our everyday life. Everybody right now would agree with me that there is one thing that is on the mind of virtually every Nigerian, on the tongue of virtually every Nigerian, and that will be the cost of fuel and the announcement by the recently inaugurated President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. All right, now let's begin world rounds. The first story we're just going to quickly touch right now is Adeyanju urges Tinubu to appoint young Nigerians as ministers. He firmly stated that the appointment of 9 young Nigerians out of the total of 36 available spots would contribute to a more inclusive and dynamic government. I mean, if you think about it, yes, we would agree with him. In a recent statement, Deji Adeyanju, who of course is a well-known public affairs analyst, has called upon President Bola Tinubu to consider appointing 9 young Nigerians as ministers in his cabinet. Will our president consider this? We will see as the days unfold. And the next story, of course, we're looking at in World Rounds is you're now a blogger. Now, there's a little bit of drama happening, in the lines of the political elites. They always do this thing where they banter every now and then. I think it's all love. So, Shehu Sani mocks retired Governor El Rufai and says he is a blogger. El Rufai's administration in Kaduna ended on Monday, 29th of May 2023, following the inauguration of Uba Sani as the new governor of the state. Now, human rights activist Shehu Sani has taken a swipe at the former governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasir El Rufai, saying the ex-governor is now back to blogging on Twitter. And yes, he used Twitter to say that. A lot of people are in the comments doing what Nigerian youths especially do best, which is chat. We call them keypad warriors. Everybody is taking sides. Some, of course, are taking El Rufai's side. Others are taking Shehu Sani's side. Which other side you stand? Be careful with your words, eh? Let's not go and get ourselves into trouble. Exactly. Now, let us discuss. Let us look at this story that touches me a lot, and hopefully within the week we'll be able to look at this story in depthly and dissect it. So, court convicts Osun State hotelier after finding him guilty of killing OAU ex-student. Now, if you remember some weeks ago, it was in the news that a hotelier killed one of his staff. Dr. Raymond Adedoyin was found guilty of murder 3 years after he was arrested for killing former OAU student in his Hilton Hotel Ile-Ife in Osun State. Of course, we would give you details of this eventually. Now, the moment that I personally have been waiting for. It's time for us to delve into the actual matter of the day. Stay with us and don't touch your dial.
My name is Jesse. My name is Adam. We're from Band Maroon 5. Today's hit music.
One FM.
We'll be right back in a second, so don't touch that dial.
The NNPC CEO calls for an end to unsustainable subsidy regime and highlights the financial strain on the national oil company. Well, this happened in a press conference that was held yesterday. The Group Chief Executive Officer, GCEO of Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, Meli Kyari, disclosed a significant fuel subsidy payment deficit of 2.8 trillion faced by the federal government. And of course, with me in the studio today to be able to look at these matters and let's have an in-depth view of what is actually going on. With me in the studio today to have this conversation is Prince Kevin Fine Face. He's a security and energy consultant and a public good advocate. Good afternoon, Mr. Kevin.
Good afternoon, Nigeria.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio here. And I would like to say publicly, we really appreciate you coming in on such short notice.
It's a pleasure. It's part of our national contribution.
All right,
when
then.
we talk about issues that will help the system to get better.
All right, then. Let's get into the matter straight head on, right? The first concern I have about this, the first question I would want to ask is, can you provide an overview of the situation regarding federal government's 2.8 trillion naira fuel subsidy payment deficit to the NNPC?
Well, if you ask me to provide an overview, it's like asking me as if to say I'm one of the staff of the NNPC or the system, but as a public good advocate and a public affairs analyst, it's part of my responsibility to be sure that the agencies of government are doing what they're supposed to be doing for the people's good. How did we get to that level where the federal government will be owing them 2.8 trillion naira, unpaid fuel subsidy expectations? How about the other aspect where you want to ask, how do we increase our fuel consumption to that rate? From the less than 20 million liters to what it is today. Are there new cars being bought and Nigerians having more money to do the things they're doing, or that there's some kind of like we saw with the crude oil theft? If there's some kind of connivance of stealing the national wealth.
Absolutely.
Under the guise of providing subsidy. Why was it that our refineries, after 8 years, of the last administration, haven't even kicked against subsidy? We heard Buhari then saying there was nothing like subsidy. Who was subsidizing in his own words? And 8 years after, the refineries are not working, and we've increased our fuel imports, beyond normal. So we need to critically look at those things before we can ascertain that the 2.8 trillion that he mentioned was the actual figure being owed. And how did they get the money? Okay, he said that they got the money from their running costs to be able to run, to help the country. Why were they doing that without appropriation? Where is the place of the National Assembly that is supposed to be doing oversight function to ensure that government agencies and parastatals are following through with processes and procedures that are outlined in the Constitution as expected of us, these agencies? Now, NNPC is a company owned by the federal government. The Ministry of Finance and Department of Petroleum Resources, they're still federal government.
Oh, of course.
They say it's a limited liability company. So you want to ask yourself, what are they doing? Just a nomenclature. So we need to critically look at the conditions that are accidents to result to this 2.8 trillion that they mentioned. Was it just an head figure was given? Was it a statement being made by diversionary statistics to get Nigerians to look at it that, let's have pity that truly the government can't pay? The truth is, yes, the government has been borrowing to take care of fuel subsidy.
Yes.
But the question is, why didn't they do anything
This entire time
to stop these things 8 years before now and start a process that would have actually transited us from dependence of fuel subsidy? Who is subsidizing what? And how many Nigerians are benefiting from the subsidy per se? Why is the market not free? Okay, Nigeria runs a capitalist system of economy.
Yes.
Why is it not that free for people to be able to bring in this in there? You have a regulator, that's the NDF, that to be able to regulate that sector and ensure people don't just go. And you also have the Federal Consumer Protection protection agency there that would have also helped to ensure customers are really not shortchanged. So if we put the agencies of government that have been established by law and those things are followed through accordingly, I don't think we'll be looking at 2.8 trillion that is being owed by the federal government for subsidy. Then we need to begin to ask questions. Who was in charge of that? And let people be accountable for responsibilities given to them. If nobody is held accountable, then of course the thing will continue. It could be just one of those funny, claims that we had with it's theft.
Yeah, of course. It's very safe to say that 2.8 trillion is a lot. It's a very lot. Is a whole lot of money.
It will take you for many years to count that to get to 2.8 trillion.
8 trillion.
We're counting, 1 to 2.8 trillion.
Of course, it will take a lot of years. That is very true. Now, what factors would you say have contributed to the accumulation of such significant deficit in fuel subsidy payments?
Like,
how did we get
here?
Them,
at the press conference, they talked about the 6 million and the 3.8, 2022, 2023 subsidy provision that were made. They never got as much as was allocated, was budgeted for. They had deficit. Now you had 6 trillion for 2022. You have about 3.8 thereabout for 2023. So why the shortfall? What brought to that calculation? So if you look at the previous relationship as regards to the subsidy, we saw when they brought in some crazy things. The first what they call it.